There we go. Okay, we're all set up. While we're waiting for people to turn up, I'd love to know where you're from. I'm here in Vancouver, Canada. So I'm just setting everything up here. Where are you from? Manitoba? No. Minnesota? Arizona. What's MN? Maine? Must be Minnesota. What's MN? Minnesota. Okay. Yeah, because Manitoba's MAN. Is it? I don't know. Uh, okay. Modesto. Modesto. That's California, right? Modesto, California. Or is it Arizona? Modesto. Oh, I don't know. Boy, I'm bad at this. Where's Modesto? Oh, Modesto, Minnesota. No, California. Oh, I was right the first time. Why don't I just say something and then shut up? Because that was just my gut reaction. Oh, you're very welcome for this content. I love these lives. They're so relaxing to me, and absolutely love doing them. So where are you from? I'm just waiting for people to turn up. That's why I just like to know where people are tuning in from. I'm in Vancouver, Canada. I don't see. I'm pretty sure if you're new, I'd love to know if you're new too, because usually it's mostly regulars. I use your principles at my group home. Excellent. Minneapolis. Mama, you've been here before, haven't you? Okay. Okay, let's get going. My name's Lisa. I'm a parenting coach. If you go in the link above, it has everything there that New Georgia. New, where's that? Florida, Tampa Bay, or just Tampa? Anyway, if you go in the link above, you can hire me for coaching, buy one of my courses, or download my free behavior board. That starts at 3, and you're on it too. There's got to be a rule and a consequence for everybody. If you're not accountable for your actions, your kids won't be either. They're watching you. You set an example. Houston. Hi, Houston. You're new. Oh, excellent. Welcome, Brittany. Northern Minnesota. New to your lives. Excellent. Got lots of new people. I've had a lot of new people lately. Most people are like, I usually get 2,000 to 3,000 people in a live, and I would say probably 2/3 of those, I think I recognize most of those names. So Paris, Maine. I'm new from California, and I'm a nurse and a mother of twin toddler boys. Congratulations. You must be very busy. Okay, so let's get going now. Carissa says, how would you deal with a 3-year-old not sharing and being greedy? You have to be very, very specific when you use that behavior board. So you would say something like, also you got to have some boundaries. Like, what do they have to share? I do believe that children deserve to have their own toys. So if they don't want to share their toys, there has to be an area they can play with nobody else, and like in their room or something, if they don't share the room, or even on their bed, they can play with certain toys and they don't have to share. And then they usually get tired of that and they end up wanting to play with someone else. But if they don't want to share, they have to go in their room or something and play in there, because it's kind of not fair playing with their toys in front of other kids. I remember doing that once years and years ago. It wasn't one of my kids. It was some other kid I was babysitting. I said, you don't have to share, but you can go in the other room in the kitchen and you can play with it there. Well, they got so bored and lonely, they ended up coming up and sharing anyway. So yeah, see how that goes. What do I do when my 4-year-old son doesn't want to get out of the car for school? He's 4. So just physically put him in there. You could still out physical a 4-year-old, right? So yeah, just put him in, make it happen. So yeah, my son had tantrums. I think he stopped at about 3.5. He stopped. And but he knew that there was no point saying no to mom, because I took action. You don't say, we're going, and if he didn't want to get in the car, he just knew that it was going to happen anyway. So yeah, if he doesn't want to get in the car, he still has to get in the car, right? That's like saying, what do I do if they don't want to go to bed? Well, you still put them in bed. You still make it happen, because you're the leader, right? And they're little. You don't do that with a 14-year-old, but he's still little. My son screams at me and tests my authority as his parent. He's 5. Okay, that's just a tell. It means, remember, we're never fixing kids here. We're fixing and training you. So you work on your leadership skills, and that wouldn't happen. There's no way. They respect you. When you're a good leader, they just respect you. My toddler tells me no and I tell her no. Do I ignore? Yeah, you just ignore that. Yeah, absolutely. You always ignore attitude. Attitude is not something you can address. Um, it's like I have a course, and I think someone sent me an email about the course, and they said, "How is this for a rule? You must respect all the family members." This guy said, "It's a little bit too broad. Pick something like put your dirty clothes in the hamper." But yeah, it was just too broad, too too general, too, and plus it's a big ask. Respect everybody, like yeah. Well, you got to tell me the age, Kelly. You got to tell me the age. My nose is all clogged up. I just had the giggles. I have another channel. It's just I call it my old lady channel. And I just yak about funny stuff that's happened, fitness and that. And I just had massive giggles and could barely get the video out. So my nose is all clogged up because I was giggling. Once I get the giggles, it's hard to stop. Okay. Well, I need the ages. You talking about refereeing siblings? Are they 2, 12? I need the age. Like I can't answer without it. Um, 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 um. Okay. My daughter just started preschool at 4, having a hard time since I'm a stay-at-home mom. Tips. Um, well, I don't know what kind of hard time you're having. Like, what's the hard time? Is she not behaving at school, or she doesn't want to go? She cries, and if she just started, give it time. Give it 2 to 3 weeks before you worry about anything. It just takes some time to assimilate. It can be really scary. Okay. My 3-year-old is amazing, but when she is around others who act out and test boundaries, she acts like them. Okay, the stronger you are as a leader, the less likely they are to do that. The reason is that they follow the leader. So they don't look to other kids for a lead. When you're a really good leader at home, they're not susceptible to bullies, peer pressure, the drug dealer on the corner, the internet, the Kardashians. You see what I'm saying? They are always looking to you. The only time I can remember my kids doing anything like that, and they both tried it, it was really weird. I think my son he's older, he was probably about 5, and he'd been in a friend's house, and he would have heard the friend, because there's no way he would have spoken. I'd never heard this tone of voice in him before. He said to me, "I'm bored," in that snotty tone. And the way I looked at him, he went, "Oops, shouldn't have done that." I just looked at him. I said, "Oh, is my precious angel bored?" And he, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." He realized right away he'd made a mistake. So I took him in the laundry room, filled up a bucket, and gave him a mop. He was never bored again. 5 years later, my daughter had been at a friend's house. She came home. "I'm bored." My son started to laugh instantly. And yeah, the same mop treatment. So yeah, it was the only time they ever gave me a snotty attitude. And that was just they were going to try it out. Because I guess when the other kids had said they were bored, the mother must have come up with something like, "Wow." My kids thought, "Wow, you just say I'm bored and look what happens." Not with me. Like if I'd said I'm bored to my mom, she would have said, "Well, find something to do." Like I had enough stuff to do. Or no, my mother would have said, "What do you want me to do about it?" That's what my mother would have said. I would have gone, "Oh, never mind." How do we become leaders? Just keep watching me. Also, if you go up above in my link, I have a free behavior board, or you can buy my course if you have a 3 to 12-year-old, or you can hire me for coaching. So it's just different levels. The behavior board will get you so far, the course will get you further, and coaching will get you even further. There's not as much difference between the course and coaching, unless you're in crisis or dealing with teenagers or dealing with something really difficult. There's not that much difference. There's a big difference between just the behavior board and the course, because the course goes into a whole bunch of different topics. But the behavior board, the free behavior board course, will teach you how to set up a behavior board on your own. But pick something easy. You don't want to fail. If you're doing that alone, you don't want to fail. And the course goes over 5 weeks. But yeah, pick something you know you can win at. How do you remain so patient? I feel bad because I knew what I was doing. I knew it worked. Yeah, it's easy to follow through when you have experience and you know that it works. It's easy. It's your uncertainty about it. And because also your kids know what you used to be like, so they're going to get worse before they get better. I always say to parents, buckle up because it's going to get ugly. And, if your kids are really out of control and you come in and exercise your leadership, they're going to get worse before they get better. They're going to try and get the old you back when they were in charge. So it's always going to get worse, almost always. So yeah, I always say everyone wants the rainbow, but I say, are you ready for the storm? Because that's what you have to go through the storm to get to the rainbow, but it's worth it. It's temporary. It's pretty quick. It's temporary. Think about it this way. You got those kids for 18 years. Is 3 to 5, 6 weeks that long, really? To go through this? What time is it there? It's almost 7 p.m. here. Three-year-old doesn't listen when we have visitors. Okay. You know why? Because you're different. They feed off of you. If you are inconsistent, yeah, parents say they're great at home, but then they're lousy when we're out. That's because you're different. I was exactly the same no matter where we were, who we were with. It made no difference. So my kids were the same. They're following your lead. If you're a good leader, they follow your lead. And they know. Like I was the exact same mother no matter where we were. Exactly. How to build trust with an 11-year-old. Well, I don't know what you've been doing in the past. So it's hard. If building trust, they usually trust you. I don't know what you mean by that. What's the troubling stuff that's going on that would make you ask that? How do you build trust with an 11-year-old? Why do they not trust you? I would need to assess that. If you want my help, you might want to hire me for that. Okay, I read comments as they come along. So rather than scroll back, the only time I'll scroll back is if people are talking and giving advice to each other. I'll sometimes see what they're referring to, or if the comments stop scrolling. But I see them as they come in. Happy to see you here this time. Yeah, I got my work done, so now I'm here. I said I've been using these lives to procrastinate with work I don't like doing. A lot of boring stuff. Every job has boring stuff, right? This is the fun stuff. Okay. 2-year-old spitting. Just say no and then ignore them. They'll eventually stop. It's just a stage. But you got to be consistent with other things too. Like you can't just address one behavior if you're not meeting their needs and managing their wants. So meeting their needs. Do you play with them? And if you do, the second they spit, you say no and you get up and walk away. So you stop the fun instantly. It's because toddlers learn through consistent corrective actions. They learn through repetition. There's no words. The one word no, that's it. It just signifies that you're taking charge. So yeah. You always seem to come on when my toddler's sleeping. Yeah, you see, I time it that way. No, I don't. Okay. Just turned 5. My son now, when we say going to turn the game off if you don't clean, he says, okay. Don't quite know the order of that. Okay, he's okay with all the... I don't quite understand the order of that. What I mean is he's playing a game and you threaten to turn it off if he doesn't clean. So he's on a game, but why is he on a game in the first place if there's a mess? Like my kids would never have asked to watch TV if they knew there was something they hadn't done. Like they just wouldn't have, because they would have known. I would have said, oh, have you done your chores? Sure, you can watch TV as soon as you've done your chores. The as soon as method. So I'm just questioning the order of that. He's on a game and then you threaten to turn it off. I don't like that as much as, sure, you can play a game. Have you cleaned up? As soon as you clean up, you can play a game. See, it's nicer rather than threatening. I don't like threatening. I mean, you have to sometimes, but I'd rather lead with oh, have you done that? Sure. So sure you can watch TV. Sure, you can play a game as soon as you've done your chores. Something like that. So it's not a big, I'm nitpicking here, but it matters. That's the as soon as method. I love that one. Isn't no the dreaded word? Not by me. Who are you talking to? Who are you listening to? The pleaser parents, the same ones who like participation awards, those ones, is that who you're listening to? Yeah. I don't mind the word know-it-all. Is it the same parents who have the mini therapy sessions with toddlers discussing all their feelings? Is it the same parents who believe in timeout, which I hate? So yeah. Um, God, I want to tell you this funny story. It has nothing to do with parenting, but I just my nose is still all clogged up from laughing at it. I might tell you later. Something really funny happened to me. Okay, please say more about the timeout. Timeout is humiliating. Imagine it, children have the same feelings we do. Um, they're a little bit different, but they're the same feelings. Imagine if you made a mistake at work and your boss put you in a corner. How would you feel? Humiliated? Feel like a piece of crap sitting there? Isn't it awful? That's what you're doing to your kids if you put them in timeout. It's exactly the same. It's humiliating. They feel like crap. I hate it. It's like saying to a kid, you're not even worth talking to. Go sit in a corner, nose to wall. And then after 5 minutes, I'm going to come over and tell you everything you did wrong. Like, it's just awful. It's just awful. I was always taught to avoid the word no. Well, I don't know who taught you that. I don't teach that. So I also don't justify what I teach. So, I'm not going to explain myself. I just don't. Kids taught me all this. Time out. What do you do? Everything else. You look at my behavior board. If you've got a 3-year-old and up, that's free up there in the link. Otherwise, if they're under 3, it's consistent corrective actions. It's actions, not words. It's actions. So yeah, if they throw something, you say no and you put that item away. And if they do it again, you say no and you put that item away and put all their toys away, whatever. It's actions. They only learn through actions, not these mini therapy sessions discussing all their big feelings and big emotions. That's for the mom. It has nothing to do with the child. It's all me, the mom. It's nothing to do with the child. Nothing. It's a very selfish way of parenting. And I know it's trendy right now, but it's garbage. Drives me nuts because I know how that backfires down the road and I know where it's headed. And I get that all the time in coaching. I have to erase all that stuff. How to handle other people's kids who are disrespectful and rude in my home. Well, there's nothing you can do if the parents are there. I just ended up dumping friends who had rotten kids who were treating my kids horribly. And, I just got rid of those friends. There's nothing you can do if the parents are there. But if you're in charge, my rules. Never had a problem with a kid when they were under my rules. But when the parents are around, it's none of my business. I don't say a word. Nothing. Okay. Sasha. What to do when your 8-year-old wants to argue after explaining you can do this once this is done? Oh, if they argue with you? So you say, oh, the as soon as method. Sure, you can play a game as soon as you've cleaned your room because now they have to have already understood that that's part of their chores. So you've got to have clear boundaries, clear rules, clear direction before this. Like the rules are they have to put their dishes away when they're finished eating. So let's say they haven't done that yet and they say, can I play a video game? Sure, as soon as you put your dishes away. You mean that? If they argue then, I'd say, are you kidding me? Like an 8-year-old? Are you kidding me? And they keep arguing, I'd say, fine, no games for the rest of the night then. I would come in hard with that. If a kid talked back to me like that, I would say, that's fine, it's your choice. No games tonight. That's what I would do. Constant pushback. It just means they don't respect you. And they say, but I didn't know, I'll do it now. It's too late. I already said no games tonight. Do you understand? Not fair. Well, you'll know next time, won't you? And I'm not discussing it anymore. Shut it down. I don't discuss it. Take charge like that. Really calm, quiet, very, very calm. Like when I was babysitting other people's kids and they'd come at me with something like, well, my mom did. I'm not your mother. It's my house, my rules. So they're like, whoa. And then they're really good. Once you're a good leader, you got to mix that with fun too. I was fun. So once you're a good leader, boy, they are just so good for you. Like it's unbelievable because they realize you mean business. Okay. So yeah, if a kid talked to me like that, I'd just say, are you kidding me? The thing is, I can do that because I can come in. They don't know me. They know you giving in. They know they know they can pull you into an argument. I would just say, I'm not going to argue with you. I said, you can play a video game as soon as you clean up. Now, if now you've already said, I'm not going to argue with you. So now if they say, not fair, not saying, well, I'll tell you what, no game tonight. Okay. That would be it. You have to be willing to go through the storm. Parents all want to avoid the scenes, the tantrums, the fits, the arguing. Why? That's where the lessons are. That's the gold. If a kid comes at me and starts arguing with me, I'm like this. My opportunity to exercise my leadership. I see it as a golden opportunity. Every time a kid's come at me, when I've been looking after other people's kids, whenever they've come at me, I'm like, yippee, yippee. Here's my chance. I've never, ever been afraid of a kid, except my own. I took the dummies away from my 18-month-old son. I would say I felt a level of fear. What am I going to go through in the next week? I took all of his dummies away at 18 months old. I think one of the few times I ever genuinely felt fear. He never asked for one, not once. I was terrified. I thought, because I was jet lagged too. We just got back from Canada. We lived in Australia. Long flight. I was jet lagged. And that was the only time. Dummies or soothers, pacifiers, whatever. In Australia, they're called dummies. Anyway, I would say I was afraid of him at that. Yeah. Because he had tantrums. 3-year-old hits himself and me when mad, how to handle it. Okay, I have a whole course on that if you're interested. Toddlers who hit. I know I don't call 3-year-old toddler, but it includes 3-year-olds in there. It goes through exactly what to do. But yeah, when he gets mad, how to handle it. Yeah, I go into it in great detail if you're interested. It's just one of my mini courses. But did you go cold turkey with them? Yes, I did. I had him have the little bag with all the dummies in it, and he put them in the outside wheelie bin. He knew. Plus, he knew me. He was 1.5. He knew when Mom said something, it was going to happen. But he still would have tantrums. My daughter never did. They're either born to have tantrums or they're not. Some kids never have them. Some kids have them. So, but he just knew that Mom. Anyway, the rest of that day, I was terrified. And every time he'd go like this, looking for a dummy, he'd look over at me, and I'd go like that. I'd look away. There's no way I was going to get eye contact when he was looking for a dummy. Never asked for one once, much to my surprise. I wouldn't expect that to go that well. I lucked out with that. How'd you break the dummies? My 3-year-old I just had them help me put them all in a bag, and they went somewhere they knew they couldn't be recovered. And also I replaced them with, I think I gave him sippy cups or something. I bought a new sippy cup for him. So he had something else to do with his mouth, right? I didn't give him chewing gum or anything, but I gave him I think it was little straw cups. He loved those. I really don't know why it worked, to be honest. Okay. Goofy goober. Handling a 3-year-old, tattling about everything without invalidating things she should tell us. Yeah, I used to say to my kids, it was because I don't tolerate children interrupting me. I was a full-on mother, and when I was talking to a friend on the phone or something, or talking to friends, they never would have interrupted. They just knew that. And so I just said, when I'm talking, don't interrupt. It's rude. So they knew not to interrupt. And I said, the only exceptions are, and it's the same kind of thing with this. I said, if there's a bone jutting out of skin or an artery is spurting blood, other than that, don't bother me. So they never did. So yeah, it was kind of like that. In other words, you're saying if it's something serious, you can tell. It's the same kind of thing. But if I had friends over, my kids knew not to interrupt when we're talking, because I was with my kids all the time. I was playing with them all day long. And then when I had a friend over, they just respected that. So, but when I had friends over and they had kids, their kids were interrupting constantly. I didn't say a word, none of my business. Ask my teen to take the dog out. She says, no, you can tell me what to do and you can't tell me what to do and you can't make me. Okay, well, that's just, you got to work on this. Like, there's so many different ways we could go. I don't know. Is she 13, 16? I would put down, you have to use the behavior board. And with teenagers, we call it an accountability chart. And I would put something like this. You have to walk the dog within 10 minutes of being asked to do so. And make it very, don't ask them constantly, but when they're available, make sure, or 15. Okay. So say that's your rule. I want that as your rule from now on this accountability chart. And then you say, what do you want from me? So you have to have a rule. And if she doesn't do it, then there's a consequence. You'll see, look at the behavior board, you'll see how it's done. But that whole situation there, she doesn't respect you. You got to work on your leadership skills. And teenagers are very different from young children. With young children, you discipline them, set up boundaries and rules to get respect. With teenagers, you've got to get the respect before you can even consider disciplining them. So yeah, if you want to hire me, it's up there. Teenagers are almost always 5 sessions. If not, just try the behavior board on your own, see how that goes. But you've got to have a boundary. You've got to have an expectation. So her rule is she has to walk the dog within 10 minutes of being asked to do so, and be fair and reasonable with that. Okay. And if she doesn't, there's a consequence. You'll see how it goes. If you haven't seen the behavior board yet, you'll see how it goes. It's all explained there. What about an 18-year-old? Yeah, same thing. Same thing. If they live at home and they're financially dependent upon you, you've got a lot of control. But the behavior board, I call it an accountability chart with teenagers. And it's more about bonding with them. Once you're bonded with them, it's about connecting with them and respecting them. Once they feel respected and they get closer to you, they're more likely to be easier to be with. Teenagers it's very hard to generalize with teenagers. They're my specialty. I love teenagers. They're my favorite age. But every parent of teenagers I talk to, it's completely different because I'm dealing with parent personalities, resentment, anger, hurt, pain, guilt, a lot of guilt. So yeah, it's the parents. I have to be very careful with the parents because they're quite fragile emotionally if they've been really dealing with a lot of teenage issues, a lot of guilt. And so yeah, it's different with everybody. It's very personal. Coaching is very personal. It's nothing like this. It's very personal. So especially when you got teenagers, you're pretty raw usually. Especially when I specialize in crisis work. So with teenagers, and you can just imagine the stuff I deal with, and the parents are just destroyed sometimes. It's just awful. But yeah, that's why I specialize with teenagers. Very few people work with teenagers, can specialize with teenagers because they are a real specialty. I've been hired, a huge portion of my clients are teachers, school counselors, principals, child psychologists. I've never been hired by a youth worker. They work with troubled teens. If you can get respect from a troubled teen, you don't need my help. That's a whole other level. That's your PhD in all this stuff. If you can get respect from troubled teenagers, you don't need my help. Yeah, that's the PhD with all this stuff. Just joined 4-year-old pouting and whining tips. So why would you give that any attention? You're just encouraging it. You don't feed it with any attention. Attention is feeding that. So yeah, I might look over at them like this, like not anger or anything, just whatever, sort of like that. Yeah. Wouldn't give that any attention whatsoever. What is the hard age to deal with? Me personally, my least favorite age was toddlers. Cute as a button, all feet, no brains. They were safety concerns. I'm a real safety nut. So you have to watch them. Everywhere you go, you have to watch them like a hawk. They can just walk in front of a bus. It's just the physical demands of a toddler. I found the most challenging age. Yeah, I love newborns and teenagers. They're my 2 favorite ages. I would say especially teenagers. But most people disagree. That's because they don't change their parenting style when their kids are teenagers. They continue to parent the same way. You don't parent a 10-year-old the same way you parent a 16-year-old. It's very, very different. So most people don't adjust it. You got to adjust it. You got to adjust your parenting. It's very different. Love your videos. I have 2 toddlers and your videos help a lot. Excellent. I hear this every day. If I didn't get this constant reassurance that I'm helping people, I wouldn't be turning up. So that's what keeps me going. It feels good. It's selfish because it feels good to help people. It makes you feel good. It's heartwarming. I thought you were going to say teen. No, teens are my favorite age. the most satisfying work I ever did was mentoring delinquent teenagers. And I had some training, but I never used any of it. And I never opened up one file. I got these huge files to look at with these teenagers. Never opened up one of them. I just thought, I'm gonna connect with that kid, and I'm gonna make them like themselves when they're with me. When you increase their self-esteem and their confidence and make them like themselves, they usually hate themselves, delinquent teenagers. If they like themselves when they're with you, they will bend over backwards for you. That's the power. And boy, you better be careful with that. That's a big responsibility too. They're very fragile emotionally, very, very fragile. So yeah, you've got to be very careful with them. But I don't take any crap either. But yeah, they're my favorite age. But it's not because I ever tried to outsmart them. I'm far too stupid for that. You can never outsmart a teenager. What I'm very good at is building them up and being vulnerable too, and admitting my own flaws and my own mistakes and building them up, and getting a hard shell too. When you first start working with them, they can be quite nasty. I have a story I tell my clients. I don't talk about it on TikTok because it's a bit controversial. My methods are a little bit off out there, but they work. They work for me. That's why I don't teach them, because you got to have a certain personality to get away. Everyone has different personalities, and my way just suits my personality. I use a lot of humor and sarcasm, but it works because it comes naturally to me. But if it didn't come naturally, it would come across as really nasty. So, but yeah, I always used humor with these kids, but I just loved it. They taught me more about myself, more about being humble and vulnerable, and being open-minded. I had a certain set of values because I was raised in a lovely home. And if you're raised in an abusive home, you have different values. And I was judgmental of their values. Once I understood that we came from different places, I respected their values. I know it sounds crazy. Their values were messed up, but I respected how they got there and I understood it. So you got to open your mind, open your heart, open your mind, and be patient as anything. So yeah, teenagers I find them fascinating. Yeah, I relate with humor and sarcasm, I think, while I respond so yeah. I hold back a lot on here because I have to be more politically correct, although I'm not really good at that anyway. I just kind of laugh, say it like it is. But in coaching, when I'm dealing with crisis work, I let a lot fly because parents need to hear what I've been through with some teenagers I've worked with. And because they're going through worse often, and I want them to understand you can turn it around. You can turn things around. So I tell them a lot of stories that I would never tell on here because it might scare the young parents. Your pool story. Was it hard to get him out of the pool for 10 minutes? Did he try and run it? No, he didn't. I used to work with him in school, so he knew me. He was all hyped up when he got there. That's why he did it in the first place. He had ADHD, and he didn't come from a great home. So anyway, he already kind of knew me, so he knew, oops, I overstepped with her, because he was really good for me at school. So that's why I could do that. Plus, it was in a pool. He's buoyant, and I'm tall. I was taller. He was only 8. So it's pretty easy to get a floater pool, you know what I mean? And under one arm and out the steps. We had like steps. So yeah, that's that pool story. If you're new here, I tell the pool story almost every live because it has so many lessons in it from start to finish. And it just kind of explains, I teach leadership parenting, kind of explains it in just one story. It's not about discipline. It's about connecting and making them feel good about themselves. Because when they feel good about themselves and when they're with you, they bend over backwards trying to please you when they're young. When they're teenagers, they bend over backwards trying not to disappoint you. They can't handle disappointing you because they look up to you. You become like a mentor, someone that they trust, someone that they feel good about themselves around. That's what this is all about. It's not about you. It's about, well, it is. It's about your leadership, but it's about making them feel good about themselves. And if you're the source of that, wow, you got a lot of power, right? Big responsibility too. You don't want to mess anything up with that. And, the more difficult, I've never been handed an easy kid to work with. Not once, not ever. No one ever said to me, here, Lisa, here's an easy one. They always said, good luck with this one. So the more difficult the child, the quicker they were for me to turn around and get respect from. Now, why would that be? And I always knew the more difficult they were, the quicker I was going to be able to get them to want to please me. Why would that be? because when they finally come up against a calm, strong leader, they almost go like this. Oh, finally. That's what they've been waiting for. All children need, crave, and want a leader. If they don't get it, some of them go berserk. The more berserk they are, the easier they were for me to flip around and get respect with, because they were relieved. They finally got what they were screaming for all those years or whatever. Okay, how do I teach my 2-year-old to share? You don't. They don't understand it. You just make sure that they all have toys, and you have to intervene and stop them from taking toys away from someone else. That's about it. The concept of sharing with the only reason that they might share is they don't want to maybe get hit if another kid might hit them. But yeah, they don't really get it. They just don't get it. Sometimes I'll just observe parents in the park when there's this kid crying or whatever, and I'm walking past. I'll walk slower just to watch it. And this is quite a while ago now, but I was watching this one mom. She was doing the mini therapy session. You know, I hate that. It's just garbage. Anyway, she had like a 2-year-old, and they were in this sandbox or something in a park. And her kid was hitting this other kid. So she goes, no, she had a mini therapy discussion. And he was 2. She had a mini therapy discussion with her son, now talking about the other kid's feelings and how you shouldn't do that. And then he's saying, yes, mommy, whatever. He's nodding, he's looking at her, and she's like, just out to lunch. She thinks this is going to work. Anyway, she turns around and walks away. Her kid went right back to hitting again. Of course, I knew I was just waiting for it, right? She did the mini therapy session, and I was trying not to giggle out loud, but anyway. So what should she have done? Take action. You say no, and then you remove your child, take the toy away, hand it to the other kid, and remove your child. You almost want them to have a scene at that point. You want them to get upset. That's how they learn. That is their process of learning. It's take action. This mini therapy session, that's for you. Their language, this use your words, saying stuff like that to a toddler is so patronizing and ignorant. Use your words. They are. Actions are their words. Hitting is their words. That is their language. You're asking a 2-year-old to find their inner adult every time you say use your words. How patronizing and unreasonable and unfair is that? I don't know whoever came up with that. Boy, I'd love to find out whoever came up with that. I think they just said it as a joke and thought, can you believe people are buying this? Use your words. The amount of times I've seen that, it's just so ludicrous to me. It's patronizing. It would be like if you were upset, let's say you're upset with your husband, he's hurts your feelings, and then he says, calm down, use your words. Like you are using your words, you're crying, you're upset. And you see, it's like that. It's really nasty, actually. So yeah, they're all about actions. Oh, I get so many stories about this exact same kind of scenario, but story after story where I just watch these scenarios take place. I know exactly how it's going to turn out. And they'll just walk past watching. None of my business. They're strangers, right? But it's like maybe one day I'll actually, like I'm thinking, maybe one day it'll work. Never has, never once. I've been studying kids for 51 years now. I started volunteering in daycare centers when I was 11 years old. And it's always been consistent. Times change, but people don't. How do I get my 8-year-old daughter to stop lying? Put no lying on the behavior board as her rule. And then in brackets, say, I will decide when you're lying. So she can't argue it. If she says, but I wasn't lying. Remember on the board, I said, I will decide. I'm deciding. If she's 8, I might even say, you know what? Maybe you were telling the truth. Maybe you are. But you've lied so many times before. I'm just going to call this one a lie. And I don't feel bad about that at all. So call it a lie. Just go for it. And then there's a consequence for that. But don't shame her for it. Just say, you can't lie. It's a rule. There's going to be a consequence if you do. Someone said, I love your laugh. Okay, you want to hear me laugh? I want to tell this story just because it's so stupid. It's nothing to do with parenting. It just struck me as hilarious. I did it on my other channel. I had a hard time doing the video because I have another channel. I call it my old lady channel. And I just talk about funny fitness stuff and that. Anyway, I had a brand new, yesterday I was going to the gym. Had a brand new, weird and funny sign of aging. I'm 62. I'm falling apart, and everything gets looser. I work out every day, but you get looser, right? So I had to cross a busy street, and I ran across the street, beating the traffic. My gym was right on the other side. And as I'm running, I'm hoofing it across the street. And I literally felt the sensation of my scalp jiggling on top of my skull. Like it's not as tight to my skull as it used to be. I literally felt like I'm falling apart here. My skin and my muscles are all coming away from the bone. And it just struck me as so funny. I had to stand outside the gym and just giggle for about 5 minutes. It was, imagine that. I felt my scalp jiggling on my skull. How old am I? Anyway, oh God, I had a horrible time doing that video. I was just laughing so hard. I got it out. Okay. So there you go. I love being in my 60s. I didn't like my 50s because I gained 40 pounds and I just hated being in my 50s. I don't know why. No, I didn't mind being in my 50s. I hated turning 50, but I love my 60s. I love it. I don't know why. I just do. Okay. You know who you are at this age. Nothing bothers you anymore. My mom used to say, my mom was one of the wisest women I ever knew. She'd been through a lot, and she died. She would be 101 if she was still alive. She died when she was 93, and 7 years ago. And she used to say, she had so many really good sayings that, growing up, I didn't really, you don't really get it. But now that I'm older, I get it. She used to say things like, everything, sweetie, everything's temporary, the good and the bad. And it's just such a simple statement that everything's temporary, the good and the bad. And I thought, yeah, it's true. So enjoy the good because it's not going to last forever. I hope it does, but it probably won't because everything's temporary. And anyway, and she was also very big on making lemonade. You could hand her anything and she made the most of it. She had a very positive attitude. She was a very warm, funny woman, but she was the most positive person I ever met my whole life. It was unbelievable. Like it was almost annoying. She just made the most. She always looked at everything from the bright side. Always had to say, well, tomorrow will be a better day. So at its absolute worst, no matter what was going on. When my dad died, we got the phone call and she cried. We both cried in each other's arms for about 5 minutes. I was 14 when he died, so it was really traumatic at that age. And we cried in each other's arms for 5 minutes. Then she pulled herself together because she had to make phone calls. And you know what she said to me? She says, weren't we lucky to have him for all those years? He just died. Like he had cancer. He just died. Like, isn't that amazing? Like, what an amazing woman I was raised by. She was my mentor. I looked up to my mom. So we were best friends. I looked up to her so much. Anyway, could learn a lot from my mom. I did. Okay. I'm always worried I'm damaging my kids in some way. Okay. I get this all the time in coaching, the guilt. And I say, you know what? I'll tell you what. Put the guilt aside, and usually people hire me for 3 to 5 sessions, depending on the age or whatever they're going through. So I say, put away your guilt till the very last session, then we'll revisit it. And it never comes up again. Like once you start being proactive and improving your parenting, the guilt just disappears. So rather than waste any energy worrying about what you did wrong, how about focusing on what you can do right? Okay, I have a course up there you can buy, or you can hire me, or for free, you can download my behavior board. It's a whole course. It'll tell you what to do, how to set systems up, basically. What an amazing way to look at life. Yeah, my mother was just the most positive. You know what? She had this charisma. She was very funny and warm, but she just had a warmth about her. Everyone was drawn to my mother. She was just, my friends they'd come over and ignore me and they'd talk to my mom. She just had a real charisma about her. She was a very warm, funny person, and she never talked about herself. She was very selfless. And yeah, I was lucky. I was adopted. I was lucky. I got some good parents. Okay. Because the guilt comes from the lack of doing. Oh yeah, I can relate to that in lots of ways in life. Not parenting, but we all do that with stuff, right? We've all got guilt about something. Why do I feel like such a bad parent for wanting to leave their dad? Yeah, I stayed in an unhappy marriage. Nothing against my ex. It just was not a good match, right? I was miserable, like very much so. And I stayed with him for a long time. And you live in denial because of the kids. And then, yeah, it's not good we never fought or anything. So the kids were shocked when we said we were separating. So that was 20 years ago. They were 9 and 14. I thought I was going to lose it over doing that to my kids, but because we always got along, like we never fought, we still turned up to everything. They really didn't suffer through it because they don't care if you're together. They care that you get along. And so, yeah. Yeah, we get along great as exes, and we never fought before. There wasn't anything to fight over. I mean, there was nothing there, right? So yeah, I was miserable, and I'm sure he was too. It was just not a good match. And but we had great kids. We were very good with money and kids, but put us in a room alone. Uh, but you know what? I never think about that anymore. I don't think of him as my ex. He's just the father of my kids, right? So, but you know what? There's lots of different reasons for marrying. I was desperate for kids, and I knew what I was doing. I knew I wasn't, wasn't a great match. In my heart, I knew that. I was in denial. But yeah, there's lots of reasons for marrying, and so long as the kids are happy, and there's lots of reasons to stay together, lots of reasons to go apart, but I don't think you should feel any guilt. Just try and get along with your husband, whether you stay with him or you don't. Don't ever fight in front of the kids. It scares them. It really does. It's like pulling the rug out from underneath them. It really does scare them. They don't feel safe with you. When they see parents fighting, they don't feel safe. They feel scared. So yeah, good divorce is better than a bad marriage. Yeah, absolutely. My wake-up call was I had arrhythmia with my daughter, and when I was pregnant with her, and then as the years progressed, it got worse and worse to the point where I had no regular heartbeat. I felt like I was dying, and so they operated. And after the surgery, and I had 2 heart attacks right before the surgery, and the doctor said, because I had the slow arrhythmia, not the fast one. He goes, "It's not supposed to cause heart attacks unless there's something else going on." And now this is a cardiologist, and he said to me, "I'd take a close look at what's going on in your life and make some changes." Whoa. Like for a car, and he had no bedside manner at all, but they pick up on stuff. They can tell. He says those 2 heart attacks were you were able to have them because of the arrhythmia, but he says that something big is going on in your life that's not right. And wow, that really shook me up for a cardiologist to be that, but he said, and I said, wow, that was really intuitive. And he goes, yeah, but I can tell by the heart. And, then he went into his science stuff again, whatever. So yeah, it's, your own happiness is really important too, but just don't fight. If you're going to fight with your husband or your ex, do it away from the children. That is the worst thing you can do to your kids, is fight in front of them. It's just awful. My kids, and I always told them, we didn't split up. Kids always blame themselves for everything because they're narcissists. That's kids are. They're not. It's not a bad thing. It's just part of growing up. It's all about you. Everything in the world that happens is because of you. It's just the way kids are. So I always told my kids, you are not to blame for the fact we're separating. You're to blame for the fact we stayed together for so long. So they'd laugh at that, but they knew, that it wasn't because of them. So they always tend to blame themselves. So make sure you absolve them of any guilt, and get along. I taught a course, a seminar once in person years and years ago, about 15 years ago, probably 17 years ago. And it was called Parenting Through Divorce. And I said, do not turn up with your new girlfriend or boyfriend or wife or husband. Turn up alone, the 2 parents. Meet in the parking lot, walk in together, and sit together. Do you think they could do that without fighting? The argument, I could hear the arguing in the parking lot, the arguing down the hall. They sat down, they were arguing. And I just said to them, you should be ashamed of yourselves. I was so disgusted. I never taught that again. It broke my heart. Kids would see that. Anyway. Yeah, just don't fight in front of your kids, whether you're together or not. It scares the bejeebs out of them. I remember I had a friend once years ago when I was a kid, and her parents used to fight. And the kids were they just had this blank look, like I'd never saw my parents yell or fight or anything, ever. And our kids never saw anything like that either. Like never yelled or fought or anything, like at each other or at them. So yeah, it scares them. Okay, I love your contentment with who you are. It's inspiring. How do you get there? I'm 62 years old. That's how I got there. I always thought I was born old. I just always was I'm goofy, but I was always the responsible one, very maternal. And I was the one, if anyone was going to be handed keys to drive home from somewhere when everyone was drinking, keys were always going to go in my hand. So it was always like that. And I always thought that I had wisdom. and knew who I was and all that. Not so much in my 20s, but by the time I hit 30s and 40s. But you know what? You can't rush it. You have to. You seem to have to go through about 60 years before it really kicks in. Even in my 50s, I feel very different in my 60s than I did in my 50s. So and I've heard this. I've heard that your 60s are the wisdom. That's when the wisdom really starts to kick in. Just as you're going out of the world, it starts to kick in. It's just experience. If I haven't experienced it myself, I've probably seen it. And yeah. Plus, you've got to be open to it too, like, and be willing to look at yourself in the mirror honestly. That's a big part. I'm very self-aware. I always was. I've always known who I was. I've never been in denial, and I'm okay with that. I don't think I'm a bad person. But yeah, if you're self-aware, self-awareness is a big part of it. Do you know why? Because if you're denying something about yourself, you're saying that you don't like yourself, you don't love yourself, that you're not okay the way you are. Anyone who's phony or pretending to be something they're not, two-faced or whatever all that stuff is, they hate themselves. Because if you don't like yourself enough to be who you are, plus, and think about this. This is something I always told my kids, and I don't think they're quite as good at it as I am, but I was really good at this one thing. And I remember I've been told that everyone throughout my life has commented on this that knew me. And they'd say, how do you do that? And I say, what? And they say, you walk into a room like you own it. And I do. I always have. And the reason is I walk into a room full of strangers all by myself, and the only thing that's going through my mind is, I hope I like them. It would never dawn on me to care what they think about me. Now, why is that? Is it because I think I'm better than them? No, it's because I don't think anyone's better than me. We're all the same. And you're going to connect with someone or you're not. I would never try and change who I am to connect with someone. And if someone doesn't like me, chances are it's mutual. It's usually a mutual thing, right? When you connect with someone, like just as friends or any other way, it's usually mutual. Not always, but usually it is. So yeah, ever since I was young, I could walk into any room like I owned it. And I remember teachers used to say that too. They said, I'd literally walk in any room like I owned it, just looking around, looking to make a new friend, But I always knew I was never going to pretend to be anything I'm not, because I'm fine the way I am. I always thought I was okay the way I was. Anyway, I need to hear this as a 25-year-old. Yeah, it's important to know that because, and also popularity is overrated. I remember once, I was never the most popular kid. I always thought I was popular because I knew I could be, but I never cared about the masses. Like I never tried to be I was never the partier or anything, but I was very confident. And, but yeah, I never wanted to be popular. Those popular kids, you know how much work they put into that? Trying to please everybody, trying to act cool. I always saw what it was. It was insecurity. The most popular kids were usually some of the most insecure kids around. And they had a lot to prove, and they worked at it. And I remember once I was in grade 8 or 9, and it's so dumb, but I remember this like it was yesterday. I thought, I'm going to be the most popular kid in school. I just decided this one day, and I just put it on, the charisma, the charm, the acting cool and all that. And I literally can remember everyone was drawn to me, like everybody was kind of, and then I thought, I hate this. It's so phony. It wasn't me anyway. It was a lot of work. So then I just turned it off and no one liked me after that. I just had my little circle of friends, but I never worried about being popular with the masses because I saw it for what it was. Yeah, 20s are, you're growing up. The 20s are for really discovering who you are. The 30s and 40s are for kind of enjoying it. And the 50s and 60s are for just honing in and becoming who you are. Yeah. My 30s have been amazing to me. 20s, I didn't know who I was. Yeah, you're learning who you are in your 20s. The funny thing is that wisdom is not correlated with intelligence because as you get older, you get dumber. Like my brain's so much slower than I used to be really quick, and I can just feel it. I'm not as quick as I was. I can just feel it, and I'm okay with that. But yeah, you get dumber, but wisdom kind of takes over. It gives you an extra edge, but you can never be as smart as you can. I think what is it, 16 to 18? Your brain power is at its max. That's why I find teenagers so fascinating. Because they're not full of baggage usually at that point too. They're at their height of their brain functionality without being scarred by life yet. So they're just sort of, I find them quite fascinating. You sit down and really listen to a teenager when they let their guard down with you, and you're going to learn a lot about things. Sorry about all that. Geez, I went on. Anyway, my almost 3-year-old is hitting and throwing things. I'm at a loss advice. Almost 3-year-old hitting and throwing things. Well, that just says to me that you're not a leader. You've been here before, Brianna, haven't you? And that just says to me you're not a leader. You can buy my course if you're interested in that, hire me, or start with my behavior board. If they're almost 3, you can probably start using that. But say no hitting. When kids hit, you always put no hitting as the rule. First rule is always no hitting. And it's only 1 rule per week. So then just have a consequence. I use that as an example in the behavior board. That's free up there in my link. No, I loved all that. Don't apologize. Yeah. I sometimes go off on my own little tangents. Did you find it hard to lose the weight from in your 50s? Well, it was what I call my menopause chub. So then when I finished menopause, it just kind of came off. It was 40 pounds. Yeah. It's harder keeping it off. I work out every morning and I'm quite hard at the gym. So I work out every day and I walk about how many steps a day? 15 to 25,000 steps a day. Very active. But I probably eat about half of what I used to, which is frustrating because I love eating. And also I'm a gluten-free health food vegan. So I'm not eating any junk food, but it's hard work. You got to work at it. You want to be fit and healthy in your 60s, you got to work at it. And I just made it a way of life though. Like I don't work at it really. It's just my lifestyle now, but I'm pretty boring as you can imagine. How do you teach a 7-year-old to set boundaries with her friends? That's tougher. I would need to know very specifically what's going on because it's different with everybody. Plus, they're not really friends if they're pushing you around. So you've got to reassert, like you've got to teach your daughter to be assertive, but I don't quite know what's going on. So they're not friends if they're not being nice to her, which is what it sounds like. They aren't really friends. Does that make sense? Here's the thing. There's this old saying I think is absolute garbage. You have to teach people how to treat you. What a bunch of crap. It's not my job to teach someone how to be nice. If you don't come into my life, like I just tossed all the toxic people in my life. You can do that when you get old. And the only people in my life now are the only people that bring me joy. There's no one toxic or snarky or resentful or none of that negativity in my life is allowed anymore. I just don't allow it. I don't bother with it. But I'm not gonna. If you don't come into my world being nice, I would toss you to the curb. So you see, because I treat you with respect. You treat me. I'm not going to teach you how to treat me. What a stupid thing. Is that the dumbest thing you ever heard? You got to teach people how to treat you. You have to train an adult how to act, how to be nice. What a bunch of crap. So in other words, if they beat you up, I've never been beaten, by the way, but if they beat you up, that's your fault because you didn't teach them how to be nice. Like, how stupid is that? I don't know who came up with that. What a bunch of garbage. Yeah, you got to come into my world being nice. I'm not going to teach you how to be nice. That's your job, not mine. I'm 52 and it's creeping up. Yeah, I'm 62. And this is when you see the huge divide. If you have not looked after yourself, this is in the 60s. I see people my own age who've never looked after themselves. We look quite different. This is when I really see it because I work every single day. I work at looking after myself. And this is when it pays off. When you're young, not so much. And I used to be teased for being into healthy food and all that when I was younger and working out so much. Friends actually used to tease me about it. They don't tease me anymore. Now you can see the divide. And it pays off down the road. You just got to put 60 years into it and it pays off. But you can still get hit by a bus tomorrow. So, okay, 13-year-old boy with ADHD, ODD who doesn't respect. What are your suggestions? Well, those are all the kids I work with. It's all the same stuff I talk about. But I don't have a course on teenagers. That's usually just coaching one-on-one with me if you're interested. That's up above in the link. But you've got to work on getting a bond going with your 13-year-old. Now, I'm going to tell you a story that is inspirational. It doesn't pertain to you specifically, but it'll give you an idea of what I'm talking about here. I was working with this one mom, and I get permission to tell these stories. I never tell names. And sometimes I'll tell something that's an amalgam of a whole bunch of parents put together, but this was one specific mom. And she was at war with her 16-year-old son. They hadn't had a good relationship probably ever. But they were at war. They fought all the time, yelled at each other. It was just ugly. Now, they had bought him a new car, and he was 16 years old, and he didn't have his license yet. And the mom was dying to get him his license. So every single night after dinner, she and her son went out for a driving lesson. Every single night, they fought the whole time. It was just a nightmare. She hated it. So she hired me to help. So I said, here's what you do. You say you're not allowed to yell. When you yell, I always say, make a mistake. Your rule on the behavior board was no yelling. His was put your dirty clothes in the hamper. You start small with them. You have more, your expectations of yourself should be way higher than your teenager, especially teenager, and your kids too, especially teenager. So her rule was no yelling. And I said, and make sure you yell because you want to be doing this consequence. So she did. And I said, don't force it, but if you feel a yell coming on, let it fly. Sure enough, she yelled within 5 minutes after we were finished talking. So she yelled at him. And then her consequence was the next driving lesson that night, she couldn't speak through the whole lesson because she was nagging him the whole time. That's why they fought. So, but she could only speak if it was like, look out for that bus or look, like life and death stuff. And that was it. So she said, well, I'm not going to do that. That's too difficult. And I said, and I just went, well, that's what you have to do. So it was a bit of a standoff between her and I. So I said, you have to do it. You'll see why. Anyway, so she did it. And she said, and she was crying. The next time I talked to her, she was laughing. She says, you won't believe what happened. She knew that she wouldn't be able to nag him throughout the whole lesson. So to remind herself, she put masking tape on her mouth, just as a reminder to herself. He didn't see her doing this. She just sort of did this, and they're both getting in the car. As she's opening up the passenger door, she gets a glimpse of herself in the side mirror and starts to giggle. And when she was laughing, the tape went like that and it was flying in the wind of her breath. She was laughing. Her son saw this. He started cracking up. And the two of them, it was the most fun they'd had in years. They were both laughing like crazy the whole time, and she couldn't keep the tape down. She couldn't talk. He loved it. Also, he was allowed to play his music, but not too loud. So it was all his music. So I said, he's driving, let him play his music. So anyway, he had all these rules around it. So anyway, it was the start of a beautiful relationship with them. You see how that works? You got to bond with them. You got to show them respect. So you got to give it before you get it, though. You don't ask much of them. You give a lot of yourself, so that you always try and bond and connect with a teenager before you can expect to get anything from them. Does that make sense? Does that help at all? She was cute, though. We worked on a bunch of stuff, but that was the tipping point. Everything started to change after that. Sorry, YouTube. I know it's dark there. The camera on YouTube isn't very good. So does that make sense? I got a million stories like that, but that one, I love that one, just because it was so funny with the tape. Okay. Mine is the opposite. Seldom. So you're talking to Jessica. Seldom has a tantrum at home, but oh my God, when we're out. The reason for that is they know you're more afraid of them when you're out. You're a different parent when you're out. I was the exact same mother if we were home, at a friend's, at Disneyland, at school, wherever we were. I was the exact same mother. And I was proud of my parenting. So I was almost like, bring it on. I'd love an audience. Like, I was proud of how I dealt with stuff. So yeah, it just says, that's just a tell. It means that you're not consistent, and they know it. They think they can get away with more when you're out. Hi, Capri. That's a cute name, Capri. Oh, mine gets upset if I peel the banana wrong. An absolute angel in public. My son was like that. My son was the touchy one, Not all the time. It was completely unpredictable. But if I did the apple wrong, if I cut it up in 4 instead of 8 or something, he would get moody or something. He was just more moody. That's all it is. Usually the kids who have tantrums are more moody too. It's the same thing, right? I can't remember what it was, but you can imagine how I dealt with that. Eat it anyway or get nothing. But yeah, he was the one that would have everything just had to be a certain way. If it wasn't, I get sick. Okay, I've got a story for you. I get sick of the stares from the older generation. Makes me feel like such a bad parent. Okay, I'm going to tell you the mall story. Is that a good one for this? Yeah. I'm going to tell you the mall story, only because it has an older generation in it. But anyway, here's what happened. My son was 3, and it was his second to last tantrum. I think he had another one. He didn't have a lot of them, but he had another one about 6 months later. He had more with his dad. I was the leader, but anyway, he just outgrew them because they weren't working. And anyway, so he had a tantrum. Nothing had happened. We weren't even talking. I think a piece of lint probably flew in front of him. Who knows? Anyway, started having a tantrum in the busy, loud mall. So I pulled him off to the side, and I just got out my nail file. This was my go-to. And I just started filing my nails. I'm just waiting, 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 waiting. Didn't go on that long, but while he was tantruming and I was ignoring him, these young moms kept coming up to me and they were saying, "Oh, you should give him a hug. Talk about his feelings." I'm like, "Oh, God, you know, nutcases." Anyway, so I said, keep going, keep going. But the grandmothers and the moms with older kids kept coming up to me saying, "Good on you. You know what you're doing." And I'm like, "Yeah, I know what I'm doing." So when you're confident and you doesn't bother you at all. Doesn't bother you at all. Now, who would I care about more? The young inexperienced moms who are doing the mini therapy sessions, which are just garbage, or the more experienced moms, the grandmothers, the more experienced parents. Okay. So yeah, that was a good story for saying, yeah, I liked it. I liked it. When I was disciplining my kid, I liked it when people were watching. I remember this was kind of funny, but they were judging me, but I didn't care. Could care less what they thought because they weren't people that I respected as parents because they didn't know what they were doing yet. They were still young moms, right? So it's like taking advice about finances from someone with $10 in the bank. Never take parenting advice from someone who hasn't finished the job and also worked with tons of other kids. If you're looking to hire someone or whatever as a coach, because those are two requisites they have to have. You can't possibly teach parenting if you haven't finished the job with your own kids and worked with hundreds of other kids with all sorts of challenges. It would be like taking financial advice from someone with $10 in the bank as opposed to $1 billion in the bank, right? It is experience-based, it's results-based. But yeah, the judgment, if you know you're doing the right thing, if you're ignoring a tantrum, just have confidence and just let it go. My son was, and my daughter didn't have tantrums. My son did. This was another time he was having a tantrum. He was much younger, and it was in the daycare. He did not like to leave daycare at the gym. We went to the gym every single morning, weekdays, Monday through Friday, and he loved the daycare. That was his social life. So anyway, so he did not want to leave, and he decided to have a tantrum. He threw himself on the ground and is having this tantrum. So I completely ignore him at the gym. It's a loud place. They all knew me there anyway. So I was just standing off to the side, ignoring him. And these two older women came by and said, "Oh, who does he belong to?" Well, I didn't know this. One of them had gone into the daycare, brought one of the daycare ladies out, and and then I saw what was happening. I just felt so bad. I didn't realize this woman was going to do this. And then she said, "We can't even find the mother." And the daycare lady looked over there and she goes, "She's right there. She knows what she's doing." That poor daycare lady. Anyway, I probably shouldn't have allowed him to do that in that gym in front of the people. But if you know you're doing the right thing, just own it. Don't worry about what other people think. I could have cared less. I did feel kind of bad that she was taken out of the daycare. She thought it was funny though. Yeah, that's her. I ignore tantrums. Good for you. Uh, any attention is tantrum food. So don't feed it. And also think about it this way. A tantrum is a process in their brain. It's not a feeling. It's a loss of control at not getting what they want, when they want, and how they want it. You want them to learn how to process not getting their own way all the time. If you interrupt that process, you're going to slow it down. It's going to last longer. It's going to go on for more years. It's going to be more intense, more frequent. So don't interrupt that process. That is their own mental process, processing, not getting what they want, when they want, and how they want it. The sooner you allow them to learn that, the easier your life is going to be. So do not interrupt that brain process. It is a process it's a natural, organic process that they will learn all on their own. But you don't leave them. You don't look on your phone. You don't talk to someone. You're just standing right there. It's important that they see you ignoring them. Like my kids knew I was just waiting. It was like I was just waiting. Like you're in a lineup. You're just waiting. And then as soon as they calm down, "Oh, y'all done? Okay, let's go." Like you don't discuss it. What's the point? Hmm. Uh, 6-year-old about death. Huh. He's curious. How do you explain that though? Because they don't really understand life. Like what I mean is, do any of us though? Like it's kind of a hard concept. Just say, I don't know. When your body dies, we don't all. Sometimes birds die. Everyone dies. They just stop living. They stop breathing, and then their body just turns to earth basically. And we don't know where their personality goes, like where their feelings go. We don't know any of that. Some people think they know, but I don't think really any of us know. We'll know one day, hopefully. But just say it like that. If they ask too many questions, just say, I don't know. Let's discuss that when you're older. Maybe you'll be able to answer that because no one really knows. It's kind of it's one of those complex ones. I can remember laying in bed, and it was the very first time I ever had insomnia, unless I was sick or something. And it was me trying to figure out how anything ever started. Like I was thinking about space. How was there ever nothing? I can remember staying up for hours, and I was probably about 8, whatever. I can remember staying up at night for hours trying to figure out how there was ever nothing. No planets, no nothing. So yeah, these are big concepts. Don't expect too much. And also don't feel pressured to explain everything. I used to say to my kids a lot, my mom did this too. I say, I don't know. Maybe we'll figure it out when you get older. We'll talk about it again. Maybe we can figure it out together. My mom never pretended to know the answers. She never felt compelled to tell me. She always used to say, well, I don't know. You can figure it out or we'll discuss it when you're older. So don't feel that you need to explain everything. You just don't. One thing, I lost all my grandparents before I was 10 years old. And one thing I learned that I got was that you'll just never see them again. That's the fact, that you'll just never see them again. That was what I found difficult. Well, when they die, you just never see them again. Maybe one day you will, and up in the clouds or something, maybe, I don't know. But that was how I understood death, was I'll just never see them again. So you don't try and sugarcoat stuff. Yeah, you need to stop caring what people think. Absolutely. Trying to think of, I must have had other situations. I'm going to tell you a funny story. It was not my finer parenting moment. It was just a funny story, really. My son he would have been 5. Um, and he was not a very brave child. Like he was not adventuresome at all. He didn't like getting hurt. He wasn't one to climb things ever. He was cautious. And I was 9 months pregnant. So that's how I know he was 5, because I was 9 months pregnant, just about to pop. He turned 5 2 weeks before his sister was born. So I was right ready to pop. And we went to Burger King, and in Australia where we lived, it was called Hungry Jack's. And there was a playground there, those enclosed playgrounds. And it had one of those big windy tunnel slides like this. And it was hot. It was in Australia. It was stinking hot. I had summer babies over there, like November, December, in that summer over there, down under. Anyway, and it was the ladder to get up to the slide was enclosed in like metal, because I guess to protect them, they could still fall down. But anyway, I guess so they wouldn't fall backwards or whatever. So it was like a tube, almost a metal wired tube going up the ladder. Then at the top, then you get in this enclosed tube like that. Now, when we arrived, he was not adventuresome at all. He'd never been on that before. It was a new place we'd gone to. So he said, can I go down the slide? Now, I guess I had baby brain. I don't know what happened. I was hot. And I said, sure. It's just stupid. And I was tired, I guess. So anyway, he climbs to the top. He gets to the top and he says, I'm scared. Instantly, I could feel myself, oh no, because I knew him. When he said that, I knew his voice. I knew that tone. I knew he was not going to go down that slide or back down the ladder. I knew I was going to have to climb up after him. And there was people around. They said, we'll go up and get him. And I said, no, he was starting to get scared. He was going to start crying and all that. And he was a very sensitive kid, And so I thought, oh, shoot. I said, he only wants mom. I was going to have to go up. I had to move the belly trying to get up the ladder. Like it was a squeeze to get up. I was big when I was pregnant. And I had to keep moving my belly in between the rungs, trying to smash my baby in, trying to get each rung. By the time I got to the top, I was a sweaty, sore mess. and he saw me and he looks at me like that. I picked him up and I chucked him right down the slide right away. He knows mom. He knew mom was going to take care of business once I got up there. Chucked him down, and all I heard was his head clunking the sides as he went down. So he gets to the bottom and he goes shooting out like a missile and lands on his back. Anyway, he gets up, and then I had to come. I said, "Get out of the way. Mommy's coming down now." So I had to go down, and I'm clunking my head against the sides, and I do the exact same thing. I'm hanging onto the baby, hoping it won't get hurt. So I come flying out and land on my back. When I did, he says to me, "Can I go again, Mommy?" I could have killed him. So I said, "We're going home right now." We just got in the car and went home. But yeah, that was kind of embarrassing. Not my finest hour, especially when I chucked him down the slide, but he didn't cry or anything. He actually felt safe because mom was there. But anyway, so yeah, that wasn't my finest parenting moment, but we survived. We never went on that slide again. Anyway, I got to get going. Thanks so much for joining me. If you want to hire me, it's up above in the link. If you want to buy one of my courses, that's up above in the link, Bratbusters. If you want my free behavior board, that's up above in the link, bratbusters.linktree. That link tree is just bullet form everything that's on my website, just makes it easier for you. So anyway, I got to get going. I don't know when I'll be back. I'll be back on Saturday for sure, probably again before that too, but Saturday morning at 10 Vancouver time. So we'll talk to you soon. Take care. Bye now. I'm on TikTok. That's where my big audience is.